Ahoy hoy! So I wanted to do a video of the Samsung Galaxy iconX versus the Apple AirPods. So, first of all, if you want the short answer of which one you should buy, if you're an Apple user, definitely the AirPods. And big surprise, if you're a Samsung user, never the Samsungs. The AirPods again. If you use an Android phone, still get the AirPods. Believe me, they are better in they're better in really big, important ways. And I'll get to that. So, first of all, comparing the price. The AirPods cost slightly less at $229 Australian dollars versus the Samsung ones at $279. Now, the Samsungs do have more features, but they're lacking in one really big thing. Actually working. Yeah, you can't really use them, or at least I can't. I will get to that. So the Samsung ones fit in your ear quite well because this part here and this ring is changeable. In fact, when you get the pack, it comes with a few size options for this and this. So if you've got an ear that's not the normal shape that Apple obviously says everyone's ear is normal shape. If your ear's any odd shape, bit bigger or whatever, you can customize these to fit somewhat comfortably. These also look better in your ear than the Apple ones because this bit sticks out the bottom of your ear, whereas this goes nice in your ear. This part here on these is actually a little touchpad. So these have gestures like volume up. I believe you swipe left and right to go through tracks. Hold it, I think, for workout and stuff. Now, these are predominantly designed to be like fitness ones. So these actually have a heart rate monitor in them. And these have some storage. I think it's around 4 gig. And the idea is you can copy music to these using the app on the Samsung phone. And then have just these, not paired to anything, and just go for a jog and tap them and play music. Go through the music, like next track, whatever. Whereas the AirPods, to get a similar functionality, you need to have the Apple Watch. Because these will pair to the watch, and the watch does have internal storage. So you can go for a run with these and the watch. These don't have the heart rate monitor, but again, that's in the watch, so you don't need it. If you're an Apple person, I recommend getting... Look, if you're an Apple person and you have the watch, I definitely recommend getting these. If you're an Apple person and you're looking at these and you don't have the watch, they'll work great. But personally, I prefer if I only had like $300 to spend, I would prefer to get the watch over these. So anyway, with the Samsung ones, for me personally, having them in my ear after a few hours, because this is in your ear so tight. And again, yes, you can adjust it, but like the idea with this is it's like wedged in your ear, and it's like that goes right in, so it blocks any sound. So in the sense that if you stick this in your ear, that's almost like noise cancelling headphones in a way. Like it's not actually noise cancelling, but like it's like an earplug. It goes right in and blocks other sounds getting in your ear. So a few problems with that. One, if you've only got one in, which I tend to do with the AirPods, you feel deaf, or at least I felt deaf in one ear, because if there's no audio playing, you basically it's like sticking your finger in your ear. Like you can't hear much. That being said, because of that, there's a feature with these that you can turn on so it uses the microphone. The microphone in this and replays the sound the microphone picks up, the ambient sound, replays it through your ear. So if you turn that on, you can hear around you, and it's pretty good. You don't have that on the Apple ones, but you don't need that one. You don't need it on the Apple ones. So the Apple ones, they are a lot lighter, like a lot lighter, and for me they fit in my ear fine. So these are a lot more comfortable to use than the Samsungs, and the Apple ones also work they work better for me. What I tend to do is neither of these products have super long-lasting batteries because they're so small and light. The thing is, if you use the Apple AirPods, now with both of these, the case that they come in contains a battery, and the device contained a battery. So you charge the case, and then you close the case, and the case charges the earphone. So what that means is, especially in the case of the Apple ones, is if I have one of these in my ear and the case is closed, the other one's going to be totally full, completely full. When this beeps to say there's like 10% of battery left, all I got to do is swap ears. Put it in the case, and then 20 minutes later or whatever, the second one's full. Really easy, really good way of doing things, because together, like the battery in the case lasts long enough that, you know, if you charge this every couple of days, you're always going to have these full, because, you know, the case is always charging them. It's not like that with the Samsungs. So, one thing with the Samsung ones is, unlike the Apple ones, both of these connect with Bluetooth. The device knows both of them are connected with Bluetooth. So my iPhone knows that they're both there. And if I put one in the case, it knows the other one's still in my ear. Keeps playing music. If I swap them, it knows one's in my ear, plays music. Not the same with the Samsungs. The Samsungs, you have to, in the app, choose one to be the master. And then you connect to that one with your phone. And then, from what I can tell, it then broadcasts to the second one. So if you set the right one as your master, and it goes flat, you can't use the other one. You have to put enough power in this so the phone can see both of them. And then go into the app and say, I want the left one to be my master now. And then charge this one up. So that whole process means you can't just easily swap them one in each ear at a time. So that means that when one's flat, so effectively however long you can get out of one of these, depending on how large you have it, then you've got to wait from the charge. So that's annoying, and it's something you don't have to do with the Apple ones. Now, these have a major flaw. So much of a flaw that I thought mine were broken. And after looking online and reading a whole bunch of forum posts, I realized I'm far from the only person with this problem. And in fact, mine don't seem to be broken. They just seem to be a shit product. Now, this major problem is that if you have these in the case is closed, it is charging. So right now, this orange light means that that one earphone is in there, like and charging, and that one, because it's not green, isn't full yet. Now it's charging it from the case. Now if I plug the case in with a USB cable, the case will charge, and it will charge the earphones. Problem is, when the earphone is full, as in when that goes green, it should, in theory, or you know, after using Apple ones, it should just stop charging. That's what you would expect. But it doesn't stop charging. It keeps trying to charge the full battery. So what this means is, if this holder case is full, and both earplugs are full, and they're all 100% full, and you sit that in the drawer, and then 2 days later or a day later you go, I want to use these, they're all dead. They just don't turn off. Now, I've tried a whole bunch of different things, turning off the Bluetooth and whatever else, and when they're in the case, like, they're not connected to Bluetooth. Like, these are off in the sense that they're not connected to anything. But they just keep running until they're dead, in the sense that they'll keep sucking power from the battery in the case until the battery is dead in the case. And then they'll just keep doing something that until they're flat. So these are useless to me because I can't just charge it up and then throw it in my backpack, say, and then in 2 or 3 days when I want to use them, actually use them. The Apple ones are completely different. If they're in here, so like the same thing in that, you know, the case charges them, and if they're both in here, like right now that's green, which means this one is full. The case has got about 70% battery in it. Now, if I left this for 4 days, it's not going to go flat because, you know, the battery in the headphone is full, so it's just going to stay there. So I can throw this in my backpack and then in 3 days pull them out and use them, and they'll be full. So I can actually use them. Also, with the size of this versus the size of this, I can keep that in my change pocket. I can't keep that in my change pocket. These have a much nicer case, a much nicer design. They're much lighter. They're much more comfortable for, hours of use. You can easily get hours and hours and hours of use by swapping them out with no issue there. The case on these is magnetic, so when you get to a certain point, the magnet sucks the lid closed. They're held in there by magnets. There's only it's funny. There's only a few reasons why you wouldn't get these, and that is, first of all, if you did have like a Samsung phone, with these, there's this sensor up here that knows when it's in your ear. Now, with the Samsung ones, you can pair these and listen to music, but it won't know when you take it out of your ear. So, like, if that kind of functionality was really important and you didn't have an iPhone, then you might want to get the Samsungs, maybe. But, they're going to be useless because they're going to be flat. With the iPhone, with the AirPods, you can double tap them. There's an accelerometer in there. It knows you've double tapped it and it will do something. Now, there have two options. It'll either invoke Siri or play pause. And if you're getting a call, you double tap, it'll answer. You double tap again, it will hang up. These have so many functions you have to memorize. Like, you have to read a manual to use these. You don't need a manual to use these. These have workout modes where it's trying to it will record your heart rate and everything and save them to the internal memory. So every now and then when I'm using these, if I tap this, somehow I turn on like running mode and it says workout started. Yeah, I don't have that problem with these. These are made to be very useful, in Apple style. They just work. These do not just work. These barely work. I mean, look, when they're paired, if you don't touch them, so you don't invoke any special settings, and after you've worked out that the volume's low because every time you turn them on, you have to turn the volume all the way up. I mean, once you've done all that, yeah, these are great. Until they go flat. Or your ear starts to hurt. So yeah, look, I want to take these back because I'm never going to use them. They're shit. They're a really bad product. Although, that being said, this is coming from my point of view where I have everything Apple. Now, I did try to go Android. I got the S8 Plus, and I got the wireless charger. I tried to jump onto the Android ship, and when I got there, I realized just how frustrating it was that nothing worked. After a month, I went back. I went back to Apple. I just couldn't stand this phone. It's in my opinion, really, it's just not refined. It's nowhere near as refined and good as the Apple stuff. But, this is like Apple's fashion. Does less, but works perfect. Does a ton of stuff, doesn't do anything right. So, also, the Apple ones don't seem to have any real latency. Like, if you're playing with like a DJ app or something, like the Apple ones they just work. There's very little latency. You don't get that with the Samsung ones. There is some latency there. And admittedly, the Samsung ones paired to an Apple device have less latency than the Samsung ones, or at least in my case, I found had less latency than the Samsung ones paired to the Samsung phone. But, I've tested these paired to my iPhone when I first got them, and paired to this iPad. Now, I noticed when I first got them, when they were paired to the iPhone, they sounded awful. Like there was a ton of compression, and I don't know why that was. Because when I paired them to the iPad tonight to do this video, I realized that, yes, they did sound slightly worse than the AirPods, but not noticeably too bad. I think the AirPods are a little bit louder and probably a bit better sound. But that being said too, like, you still, like, the AirPods have been out for ages, and to buy these today, you've still got to wait 4 weeks. Whereas I went to a Samsung store months ago and just purchased those. They had them in stock. So, if you're impatient like me, you might just want to get the Samsungs. Now, what I've got right now is both sets, and I'll just double check that, but I believe both sets of the Bluetooth. Yeah, they're both connected. I have one in each ear at the moment. So what I'll do is, I will open up that DJ app, and alright, so right now the audio is coming out of my Apple ones, and what I want to point out is if you're doing something like, I have to turn this down because that is way too loud. Okay, so if you're doing something where latency would be an issue, like playing with this DJ app, this pretty much feels as responsive as wired headphones. Like, the second I touch this and that stops moving, that's the second the audio stops. Like, any delay is a few milliseconds. Like, that is really good. By comparison, if I take this out of my ear, it will probably, yeah. Okay, so now by comparison, I took this out of my ear, and the iPad was smart enough to route the audio then through the Samsung sets in my other ear. Now, actually, now that I listen to it with a direct comparison, this sounds very compressed. Okay, so the Samsung one does sound very compressed at the top end, like it's missing a bit of info. It doesn't sound as compressed when using the Samsung phone. So there must be something that these maybe deliberately have in them to make them sound worse on an Apple phone, or maybe. But they sound compressed through this, like a little tinny and scratchy. But I definitely don't get that problem when they're connected to the Android. The other thing is, okay, latency on these, right? What I'm going to do to give you an example. Now, the other ones are pretty much dead on. The iPhone ones are pretty much dead on. With this, sound. Like, that's the difference. So let's see how I can describe this to you. There. So if you look at this waveform, that line there, that's where it was when I let go. And roughly where it is now is how long it took to be able to hear it. So if I go to there and let go. Okay, so it's about... This is a really bad way of describing it. But if you look at the scale, it's probably like that much latency, whereas the iPhone one is basically on its own line, so it doesn't have the latency. The latency gets worse, oddly enough. The sound's worse. Samsung ones connected to an Apple device sound worse than Samsung ones connected to a Samsung device. Samsung ones connected to an Apple device have less latency than Samsung ones connected to a Samsung device. There's more latency on the Samsung. Apple ones sound just as good on the Apple device or the Samsung device. Now, I would seriously say, like, I mean, these sound so good in general, that if you want some form of wireless, and I mean truly wireless, earbud, and you don't care about the fitness crap that Samsung's selling with these, buy the Apple ones. I mean, it doesn't matter what platform you use. If you're the one or two people with a Microsoft phone, these should still work. You know, if you're everyone else with Apple or Android, these will work. So yeah, basically, you can connect either of these to either platform, but the Samsung connected to Apple, basically not usable because of the compression. The Samsung connected to Samsung, usable, but you have to keep them plugged in every single night, and they may still be flat by the end of the day. The Apple ones just work. So there's my review, if you can call it that. Oh well, yeah, bit of info on these. Me being an Apple fan doesn't... Look, the Samsungs probably weren't going to win anyway, but like, they suck. They really do. So if you are in the market, I would recommend buying these. Like, to be honest, if these were $500, I would still buy them. But, you know, if the Samsung... Actually, it's funny. If these were $500 and the Samsungs were only $100, and the compression problem was gone, so these sounded perfect on an iPhone, at that point, I might be persuaded to buy these, but I would regret it. And with these costing more, no way should anyone buy them. However, if you are a Samsung person and you are thinking still about buying these, Google issues with these and read all the comments and complaints where these have big issues and Samsung is not responding to people and Samsung's not fixing them, and Samsung probably won't release a fix for these. So, you know, garbage. Anyway, hope you liked the video. If you did like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, you can always give it a thumbs down. Please leave a comment, and thanks for watching.